I just killed a zombie in my dream, but when I woke up in the morning, I had actually grown a 9-pack of abs. Even my school belle younger sister, after seeing this scene, her face instantly turned red. It turns out, in others' eyes, I was just a humorously inept loser. Not only was I looked down upon and ridiculed by the entire school, even the teachers said that I would become scum of society in the future, only because my blood chi value was a meager 0.7. Even girls doing manual labor were higher than me, and in this world that venerates martial strength, the blood chi value determines your future. Dad, in order for me to get into university, works 2.5 jobs every day to buy me expensive tonics. But because of this, he has fallen ill. I felt very distressed when I saw this. Then I hurriedly returned to my room and started training, but I trained until I was exhausted. My blood chi value, instead of increasing, actually decreased. Thinking about how my sister, who just started high school, already had a blood chi value of 1.0, my heart was filled with a sense of disparity. When will I ever be as strong as my sister? Just then, my vision suddenly blurred. When I came to my senses, I had actually arrived in the dream wilderness again. Just as I was about to pinch myself awake, a zombie suddenly appeared from behind and attacked me. In a critical moment, I grabbed its neck to prevent it from biting me, then I kicked it hard in the chest. Before the zombie could get up, I quickly picked up a rock, and then smashed it relentlessly on its head. After making sure the zombie was thoroughly dead, I sat on it, gasping for breath. But the corpse suddenly emitted several wisps of black mist, which instantly drilled into my body, accompanied by a headache as if my head was about to explode. Memories of others continuously appeared in my mind. After the pain subsided, I knew these were the memories of the zombie before it died. But just as I was wondering why this situation occurred, another zombie actually appeared behind me, but in the next second, I actually waved my arm involuntarily, directly decapitating that zombie. When I came to, I was completely bewildered, and that mysterious black mist entered my body once again. At the same time, I also felt my strength was continuously increasing, so easily I could obtain experience that others might not get in a lifetime. Won't I be heaven-defying in the future? But just as I got up to explore, a strong memory suddenly appeared, continuously driving me to base 1359. Could the truth of the dream be found there? At this moment, a series of urgent knocks on the door startled me, but the moment I opened the door, my sister noticed the 9-pack abs on my body. Her heart suddenly raced. Then she stammered, calling me to eat. Then she pretended to be indifferent and left, but my heart was filled with mixed emotions. Originally, my sister was very clingy to me when she was little, but ever since she found out my blood chi value was only 0.7, her attitude towards me changed. After all, her blood chi value had already exceeded 1.0. She was even hailed as a genius by the school. But just as I was about to change clothes and go eat, I suddenly found my body had become very strong. Could it be that the battle in the dream just now could actually be reflected in reality? I excitedly threw a few punches, discovering that my body was not only full of strength, but had also inherited various combat skills. And looking at my hands, I could hardly believe it. So I didn't even eat and went straight to the martial arts hall to test my blood chi. Looking at the martial arts hall's promotional poster, I learned that the hall master was actually a level 4 martialist. You know, a level 1 martialist has a blood chi value of 1.5, and a combat power index of 150, not to mention a superhuman-like level 4 martialist, whose blood chi value exceeds 200, and combat power is as high as over 100,000. This blood chi value is equivalent to almost 300 of me. Looking at the price of the college entrance exam cram school, I understood. Only rich kids could afford to enroll. A poor loser like me could only go for a free blood chi test. The receptionist at the blood chi testing machine saw I was a poor student, and casually pointed to the free room. Soon I arrived at the blood chi testing machine. The moment I touched the testing ball, an energy continuously flowed through my meridians. The next second, my blood Chi value was displayed. It actually reached 0.96. Seeing this, I excitedly clenched my fists. It increased by 0.2 in just an hour. If I continue to develop at this speed, my blood Chi value will soon surpass my sister's. I suppressed the joy in my heart, struck a pose, ready to test my combat power. Then, in my mind, continuously, flashed the combat techniques from the zombie's entire life. Then I fiercely threw a punch at the testing machine. The next second, the machine showed my combat power reached 113. This combat power even far exceeded the limit of my blood Chi. I immediately decided to go back and sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. By then, I could truly break through my cocoon. But after returning home, I was too excited to sleep. So I had to practice military boxing. Training until exhaustion would surely make me fall asleep naturally. But the next second, I actually performed some very unfamiliar moves. At the same time, the zombie's past memories kept appearing. It turned out this was the iron refining art from the zombie's memory. But I soon discovered, cultivating these moves was extremely difficult. It was more than 200 times harder than what I had practiced before. But every time I performed a move, I could clearly feel power constantly emerging. These few short moves were even more effective than years of my practice. Unexpectedly, after practicing for only 2.5 minutes, a strong sense of hunger suddenly came from my abdomen. I immediately understood that my blood Chi value had skyrocketed, but the energy in my body couldn't keep up, and ordinary food simply couldn't replenish the oxygen count, meaning I needed tonics. But the family's income was tight, and couldn't afford those expensive medicines. I had to find a way to make money, and currently, the best way to make money is the school's scholarship. But to get this money, I must reveal my talent. And the next day, I got an opportunity to show my strength. The combat class teacher, to highlight the strength of a rich handsome guy, actually deliberately called me, this loser, to be his human punching bag. Everyone looked at me with disdain, thinking I would be severely beaten by Yang Yi. After all, I was a notorious loser, and Yang Yi was a top genius. Even my best buddy advised me to just admit defeat. But how could I let go of the chance to show myself? However, as soon as I stepped onto the ring, Yang Yi taunted me in a strange voice. A good-for-nothing whose blood Chi value was cut along with his umbilical cord dares to be my opponent. The next second, he actually threw a punch in a sneak attack. Seeing this, everyone was greatly surprised. They all thought Yang Yi's punch would instantly defeat me, but I suddenly disappeared from his sight. At the same time, blood Chi continuously gathered. My fist landed a straight punch on his left cheek. Effect assessment: severe tinnitus. Jawbone fractured, causing immense psychological trauma, and I successfully demonstrated my value. Soon, Yang Yi was carried away on a stretcher, but the teacher called me to the office. As soon as I entered, he questioned if I had taken drugs. Otherwise, how could I defeat Yang Yi, whose blood Chi value crushed mine? I quickly stated, my blood Chi value was no longer 0.7. Hearing this, the teacher immediately took out a testing ball for me to test. If I had used drugs, then my blood Chi would show violent fluctuations. But the next second, he was stunned by my blood Chi value, because an 18-year-old student's blood Chi value reached 1.5. In the school, even in the entire Bihar city, he could be considered a genius. Ignoring the teacher's shocked gaze, I got into a stance, ready to test my combat power. The next second, with a loud bang, the teacher had mixed feelings of joy and sorrow, because I not only broke the testing machine with one punch, but also happened to smash his beloved potted plant. But the teacher also saw, my combat power had already exceeded that of a level 1 martialist. He eagerly asked me, when was the last time I tested my blood Chi value? But hearing that I only took half a month to reach 1.5, the teacher was once again shocked. He even thought I was the heir of some prominent family, and I directly denied his guess, stating my family background was very ordinary. Hearing this, the teacher breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately wanted to arrange for me to enter the best elite class. But I refused the teacher's kind offer. After all, any guidance couldn't compare to the speed of cultivating in dreams. At the same time, I stated that I needed a scholarship now, and hoped the school would give me flexible school hours. Hearing this, the teacher decisively took out a black card and gave it to me. There are 100,000 in here. You take it first. If it's not enough, ask me for more. Receiving the black card, I quickly thanked him, but as soon as I walked out of the teacher's office, he excitedly slammed the table. I can't believe our school actually produced a level 2 martialist under 18 years old. I must quickly tell this good news. After so many years, we finally have someone who can go to that place. After returning home, I entered the dream world. After dealing with a few martialist zombies, relying on their memories, I found that base 1359. Looking at the magnificent city wall before me, I felt that even if a colossal titan appeared, I wouldn't be surprised. Soon, I followed a crack into the inner city, but I found someone sitting in the distance. Upon closer inspection, it was a zombie, but the next second, a slight pressure washed over me, and I was directly knocked to the ground by mental power. From such a distance, to be able to cause such a formidable threat, this made me realize, my current self absolutely cannot go near there. But the zombie in front of me wasn't that fierce. Immediately, I took down a zombie, and came to an ordinary room. But then a mysterious device caught my attention. I curiously touched it. Unexpectedly, a virtual image suddenly appeared before my eyes. Welcome to Tianheng Technology. I stared blankly at the future technology before me. But what surprised me the most was, the virtual assistant actually used Chinese. At this time, it began to automatically connect to the Skynet. Then, a vast amount of information about their world emerged, and based on this information, I learned that the top martialists in their world actually reached a terrifying level, and there were dozens of them. But even with such powerful martialists and technological level, they still couldn't resist the terrifying monster army. Finally, they had no choice but to abandon their homeland, and sent out search teams to find habitable planets. However, until the day their civilization completely collapsed, the search team never sent back any news. Then I asked Ari Yi to bring up the historical logs, hoping to learn some useful knowledge from it. Perhaps it could save the current Earth. But my hand suddenly froze in mid-air, because the data displayed was precisely the history of my real world, meaning, the world destroyed 10,000 years later is our Earth. To prove the truth of the matter, I asked Ari Yi to bring up my personal information, but the content that appeared made my face turn ashen. Above, it recorded that I was just a commoner who could live to be 28. I couldn't quite believe this was real, so I asked Ari Yi to check my sister's information, but it prompted that I had insufficient permissions. A genetic blood sample was needed to view others' information. Just as I was thinking about how to provide a blood sample, Ari Yi actually bit my finger. The next second, it prompted me. Kindling projector is connecting to resource base 1359. But just as I was puzzled, I found my future had changed. The information detailed that I ranked first in the whole school, but only ranked 23rd in the entire city. Afterwards, I served in the Tiannan military region, and finally died in battle at the age of 37. I suddenly understood. Becoming stronger could actually change the future. If so, then my future will definitely not stop at 23rd place, but stand at the pinnacle of the world. And I must be the one to change the future of human extinction, the one to turn the tide. Then I asked Ari Yi to search for all cultivation methods in the resource library. Unexpectedly, the martial arts civilization of 10,000 years later was terrifyingly astounding. It instantly displayed 570,000 cultivation manuals. This dazzled me. Then, I asked Ari Yi to select cultivation methods suitable for me. After careful selection, what remained were the 3 best cultivation methods from 10,000 years. These secret manuals were all created by level 11 powerhouses from 10,000 years later. You know, the strongest martialists on Earth now are only level 9, and the 3 cultivation methods before me were created by three peerless powerhouses throughout their lives, so I began to try cultivating these basic methods. Operating the stellar body tempering art is to treat oneself as a miniature universe, refining all the cells in the body, turning every cell into an incredibly powerful star. If this cultivation method is cultivated to great success, the physical body's density will reach an unimaginable level. Then I started trying the natural breathing method, and just practicing the fire quality breathing on the first day felt like countless flames flowing through my blood, continuously tempering every inch of my flesh. And this is just the most introductory active water breathing method. If all breathing methods are mastered, it will reach an unimaginable state. The last one is the crystal contemplation method, different from the violent cultivation methods of the previous two. It specializes in cultivating the most mysterious mental power. Immediately, I began to operate this cultivation method. When I opened my eyes again, I had arrived at my sea of consciousness. But there was only a sleeping man before me. No matter how I shouted, he didn't react at all. Immediately, I understood. Perhaps I hadn't yet reached the realm where I could cultivate mental power. Mental power. It seems I can only wait until I become stronger to cultivate this method again. And when I woke up from the dream, I actually felt my body was extremely tired. Just then, a foul odor came from my body. It turned out the effects of cultivation in the dream were actually reflected in my own body, and if I collect the scholarship tomorrow, I can start alchemy. This pill formula from 10,000 years later will not only allow my strength to advance by leaps and bounds, it might even change the pharmaceutical landscape of Earth. So the next day, as soon as I arrived at school, I went to the teacher's office. After receiving the 80,000 yuan scholarship, I bought all the medicinal ingredients according to the pill formula. Then I eagerly went to the alchemy room. Although this was my first time doing alchemy, the details and steps of alchemy I had practiced countless times in my dreams. A moment later, this potion from 10,000 years later was created by me. Looking at the pink potion in my hand, I impatiently swallowed it in one gulp. But just as I was wondering why the potion had no reaction, suddenly, my heart thumped violently. Then I painfully collapsed on the ground. Fortunately, I recovered after only 2.5 seconds. When I got up, I found this potion not only replenished my depleted blood chi, it actually had the effect of shrinking pores, whitening, and moisturizing the skin. At this moment, a series of urgent knocks on the door kept coming. It turned out to be Xiao Huang from the front desk, telling me to leave quickly, because his irritable lady boss was back. It turned out the Lady Bossy family was a top-tier alchemy family in the country, but because of her father's stubbornness, the shelves of the pharmacy were still stocked with old pill formulas from 100 years ago. Therefore, the He family fell from grace in the pharmaceutical world. To protect the family business, He Ling could only continuously search for famous folk remedies. But as he hurriedly walked into the pharmacy, he angrily took out a white coat, questioning Xiao Huang if he had brought someone into his room. Seeing Xiao Huang's unrepentant look, He Ling could only fire him with a headache. Then he went to tidy up the alchemy room in a rage. But at this moment, he suddenly discovered a shattered test tube on the ground. He Ling curiously picked it up, then licked the residue of the potion. The next second, his pupils constricted. He hurriedly ran out to stop Xiao Huang, and Xiao Huang, who thought He Ling wanted to keep him, unexpectedly had his clothes grabbed directly, shouting for Xiao Huang to immediately find the person who concocted the potion. But Xiao Huang's head was about to be shaken off. He could only tremblingly take out his phone. He Ling quickly snatched it, then impatiently dialed my number. At this time, I was frantically cultivating techniques. I believe if I keep this up, and then use these spirit-gathering blood soups for my own body, perhaps I can truly nurture a star. Just as I was about to consolidate my cultivation, suddenly, the phone on the table rang. As soon as I answered this unfamiliar call, He Ling's mouth began to chatter incessantly, saying she really wanted to meet me, but I requested to meet a week later. Then I hung up the phone directly. But He Ling couldn't hold back any longer. She told Xiao Huang that for every day earlier he could meet the master, she would give him an extra 500,000. Xiao Huang's face lit up with joy upon hearing this. But the one who came to make medicine was just a high school student. Lady boss, could you be mistaken? He Ling was shocked upon hearing this. Just a high school kid can concoct such a potion. Who on earth is he? And at this moment, I encountered the strongest enemy so far in my dream. Strongest enemy, a terrifying level 4 martialist zombie. Before I could react, it threw a punch straight at my face. Although I dodged this blow in time, the sharp pain from my arm instantly made me realize its strength was at least double mine. While I was thinking, the zombie threw another punch, but I dodged it with flexible movements and circled behind it, delivering a fierce kick. Looking at the fallen zombie, I didn't hesitate at all. Using all my strength, I killed it with one kick. At the same time, I acquired the zombie's memories from before it died. It turned out he was a level 5 powerhouse before he died, and I, with level 1 strength, defeated a level 4 zombie. My strength must have improved by leaps and bounds this time. I couldn't hold back my excitement, and went to the Hongchuan Martial Arts Hall again to test my blood chi. The receptionist girl, seeing it was me, the poor student, again, said with a forced smile that a martialist's strength requires gradual accumulation. Blood chi value doesn't suddenly skyrocket. Only then did I realize I had already come here twice within half a month. But if my strength hadn't grown so fast, I wouldn't be willing to keep coming here. Then I went to the testing ball to prepare for the test, and the value that appeared was 15.6. It even far exceeded the standard of a level 2 martialist. But thinking about it, it makes sense. Possessing techniques and potions from 10,000 years in the future, it would be strange if there wasn't such a high increase. Then I walked to the combat power tester, and threw a punch with all my might, and the combat power index displayed on it reached a terrifying 3,137. But I knew this wasn't my limit. Immediately, I applied the cultivation technique, ready to see where my limit truly lay. The next second, I fiercely unleashed the stellar force. A moment later, I said goodbye to the receptionist girl, and she, seeing my handsome and dashing appearance, actually blushed like a starstruck fan. But this scene was noticed by a girl with orange hair, and she kept teasing. It turned out the girl was the daughter of the Hongchuan Martial Arts Hall master, and the red-haired junior martial brother beside her. Upon learning I was here to test my blood chi, contemptuously stated, "Martial arts cultivation is for the rich, not the poor. No matter how much ordinary people cultivate, it's futile." Then he begged Ni Shuang, wanting to see my test results. Ni Shuang, seeing she couldn't dissuade him, helplessly picked up the tablet and checked my test records. The next second, Ni Shuang was stunned by the data I left behind, because my combat power reached a terrifying 15,000. Ni Shuang quickly called the receptionist girl to find me at any cost, because being under 18 and having a combat power of 15,000 made me outstanding even in the entire country. At this time, I had already arrived at the Martialist Association, preparing to take the Level 2 Martialist Certification Assessment. After all, with a Martialist certificate, I would receive a considerable sum of money every month. After filling out the application form, I finally arrived at the assessment hall, but seeing the sea of people inside, my little bit of excitement was instantly extinguished. After all, time is money, and a young girl aroused discussion among the surrounding crowd, because most of the people here for the assessment were over 25 years old, and her age seemed even younger than mine. I wonder which school's genius she is. At this moment, a giant man, 2.5 meters tall, walked into the hall. He pushed aside the people blocking his way with his finger, and walked straight towards the testing machine. All the people whose queue he cut dared not speak. Only one woman angrily pointed at him, cursing him for having no manners. But after the tester took his materials, he said he could test, because he was the only one assessing for level 3 martialist today. This statement stunned everyone. After all, There were only a dozen level 3 martialists in the entire Bihar city, and the strong should naturally enjoy various privileges. Then the giant man began the test, but the result shocked the onlookers, because his blood chi value had reached 107. This definitely surpassed a level 3 martialist. Then he started the combat power test. The giant man threw a fierce punch. Just the wind pressure generated by the punch made the martialists in the hall unsteady, and the combat power index on the testing machine reached a formidable 10,000. He was simply a mobile destruction machine, and at this time in the hall, only 2 people could still stand. While everyone was still recovering from the shock, I directly asked the tester to test me first. Seeing how calm I was after that punch, he admiringly agreed. Immediately, I placed my hand on the testing ball, and when he saw my blood chi was only 15.7, the tester's eyes almost popped out. After all, someone who is already a level 2 martialist at 17, there were only a few in the entire city. I ignored the surprise of the crowd in the hall, and directly started the combat power test. I gathered the power of the stars into my fist. With the shattering of the special glass, a combat power as high as 15,000 was displayed. I exhaled a breath of turbid air. Unexpectedly, the combination of the 3 cultivation methods actually increased my combat power by 10 times. Is this the charm of martial arts techniques? And the tester who witnessed this scene was suddenly at a loss. After all, I was assessing for a level 2 martialist, but my combat power exceeded level 3. Immediately, he excitedly stated he would definitely report this matter to the higher-ups. Even if he had to risk his entire career, he would not let a genius like me be buried. At this moment, a loud voice suddenly came from behind me. Just when I thought he was going to hit me, the giant man extended his hand, wanting to befriend me. After exchanging names, the men's eyes, full of mutual admiration, kept glancing at each other. After all, this Zhao Changfeng was a formidable level 3 martialist, and as a level 2 martialist, my combat power truly surpassed level 3. But after those martialists saw my strength, they all rushed to shake my hand. Seeing this, I had to flee in embarrassment, but unexpectedly, I ran into my sister at the door. She also didn't expect to meet me here. After all, in my sister's eyes, I was just a good-for-nothing who couldn't wake up. What was I doing at the Martialist Association now? I originally wanted to brush her off with a few words, but I didn't expect my handsome figure to attract the favor of the girls. They all eagerly introduced themselves, and said they were accompanying senior sister Yang Yuan to participate in the Martialist assessment, and after chatting with them for a few sentences, I patted my sister's head and turned to leave. Soon, Yang Yuan walked out of the Martialist Association, but she sighed, saying something unexpected happened, causing all assessments to be suspended, because there was a monster, who was clearly about the same age as her, but his blood chi value was actually 15.7, and his combat power reached 10,000. Compared to him, her own talent was simply a joke, but after a few curious inquiries, they found out, such a monstrous man was actually the good-for-nothing older brother Qin he spoke of, and as soon as I got home, I entered the dream. I activated the optical computer and called out Ari Yi, then I asked her to check my life history again. This time, my information had changed dramatically. At only 18, I became a level 2 martialist, causing a sensation throughout the city. Afterwards, I entered the provincial genius training camp. 3 years later, I graduated from Dongning Martial Arts University and began my service. At 45, I advanced to a level 6 martialist, finally dying in a beast attack at the age of 87. After reading it, I became even more certain that the future can be changed. Just a week ago, my information said I would only live to 37. But a level 6 martialist is still insignificant to Earth. Still insignificant, because on Earth 10,000 years later, there were hundreds of level 10 martialists, yet they still couldn't escape the fate of being annihilated. If I want to shake the fate of humanity, I must break through to level 11 martialist. Only then will there be a glimmer of hope, and since I have chosen this path, I will never turn back. At this time, two powerful individuals suddenly came to my house. One of them, an uncle, was actually the president of the Martial Arts Association, and he was at least a level 6 quasi-grandmaster. After watching my assessment video, the uncle believed I was definitely a talented martialist. When such people awaken, not only will their blood chi explode, they will also possess unique talents. Then the uncle bluntly stated his purpose for coming. He came here specially today to award me the level 2 martialist badge, and given my outstanding martial arts talent, he would grant me a stipend according to level 3 martialist standards. Hearing this, my parents were so surprised they almost fainted. They never dreamed their once good-for-nothing son would be so promising. Then the president took out a standard plaque, wanting me to participate in Dongning Province's Genius Training Camp. Hearing this, Ni Shuang stood up at once, because although the training camp was full of geniuses, it was also a place that destroyed geniuses, because their martial arts hall's strongest senior brother had participated in this training camp, but the once high-spirited him became disheartened after returning from there. Therefore, Ni Shuang thought I didn't need to take this risk, and a slight smile appeared on my lips. Then I accepted the president's invitation letter, because my future heights would definitely not be limited to this, and I also wanted to see how strong the geniuses really were. After the president bid me farewell and left, Ni Shuang immediately invited me to become an honorary disciple of the Hongchuan Martial Arts Hall. Not only would all projects in the martial arts hall be free, even the hall master could personally teach me, but I directly refused Ni Shuang, because I didn't need it, but I still allowed her to publicize the fact that I trained at the Hongchuan Martial Arts Hall. Ni Shuang had no choice but to agree. Then she offered me a monthly salary of 100,000, and turned to leave, and Mom, holding the 1 million bonus, felt like this was all a dream. I also excitedly grabbed Mom's hand. My parents finally don't have to do hard labor because of me. They don't have to work so hard anymore. The next day, in order to find better medicinal herbs, I went into the deep mountains and old forests. I applied the stellar force to my movement technique. Unexpectedly, when stellar and movement technique combined, my speed was actually 5 times faster than a level 2 martialist, and I named this movement technique Cloud Chaser. A moment later, I reached the mountain top. Looking at the beautiful sunset before me, I directly began to operate the natural breathing method. Just then, I suddenly realized this was the correct way to use the natural breathing method. Every breath could draw energy from the air and perceive everything, merging with heaven and earth. The next second, I unconsciously threw a punch. The fist wind actually dispersed the clouds, and when I opened my eyes again, I found I had actually broken through. This was truly an unexpected joy. After collecting the medicinal herbs on the mountaintop, I directly headed towards the foot of the mountain, because the other medicinal herbs had already been ordered. Then I exerted force with my feet and used Cloud Chaser. In less than 2.5 seconds, I arrived at the agreed location, and the merchant selling medicinal herbs had been waiting for a long time. But just as I was taking out money to buy the medicinal herbs, he suddenly changed his mind. Not only did the price increase tenfold, he also demanded I buy all the medicinal herbs. I instantly understood. They were trying to force a sale. I wasted no words. Directly placed my hand on a nearby boulder. With a slight squeeze, I crushed it to pieces. Seeing this, cold sweat dripped down the merchant's back. They all knelt on the ground, begging me for mercy, and said they were just joking earlier. I could take any medicinal herbs I wanted. Immediately, I selected a basket of useful medicinal herbs, and left under their cheerful send-off. A day later, I arrived at the Dongning Province Genius Training Camp. But looking at the solemn scene before me, it felt more like a military base. Just then, an instructor in military uniform asked where I was from, but hearing I was recommended by the president of the Baihe City Martial Arts Association, the crowd nearby immediately started laughing. No one from Baihe City has come for so many years. He must have bribed his way in. A moment later, I was arranged for the camp entrance ceremony. At this moment, the gate behind me suddenly closed. At the same time, the instructor announced we had to pass the entrance exam first. The task was to walk to the exit at the other end of the corridor. If we failed, we could go home. But just as everyone was expressing dissatisfaction, the ground suddenly cracked open. Everyone lost their footing and fell. 2.5 seconds later, I landed steadily on the ground. Looking at the empty corridor, I sensed that things definitely wouldn't be this simple. Immediately, I spread out my mental power. Sure enough, many dark figures were hidden ahead. But at this moment, a man in red said it was boring. Such low-level traps were not worth mentioning at all. Then he incited the Qingyuan city's martialists to unite, urging everyone to push me, an outsider, to scout the path ahead for them. Hearing this, I snorted coldly. I immediately pushed aside the man in red, and walked towards the depths of the corridor. Then I turned back and said disdainfully, "Only sheep flock together, while beasts of prey always walk alone." Hearing my taunt, the man in red was about to hit me, but suddenly, 20 red balls fell from the sky. Then the spheres continuously rotated, and actually transformed into a group of mechanical puppets. Seeing this, everyone instantly fell into disarray. After all, the weakest puppet had strength far exceeding a level 1 martialist, but I curiously observed them, hearing that these puppets possessed advanced martial arts comparable to a level 4 martialist. A puppet suddenly threw a punch at me, but I didn't dodge. Only a loud bang was heard, and smoke instantly filled the air. Just as Hong Yinano was mocking me for overestimating myself, he saw me take the punch like Mount Tai, unmoving as a rock. I thought I could learn some moves from the puppet, but this punch disappointed me somewhat. Then I lifted the 2.5-ton puppet with one hand, unleashing stellar force. The immense power in my hand directly destroyed it. Everyone was astonished by this scene, not expecting me to be so formidable. But Hong Anan burst out laughing at this moment. Then he stated, "These puppets' combat power is about the same as a wooden dummy. Similar. Otherwise, how could that loser block the puppet's attack?" Saying this, Hong Anan walked up to it. He confidently kicked off the puppet's head. Then, with a graceful turn, he continuously showed off to the crowd. Next second, the robot suddenly threw a punch at the man in red. His face was distorted by the sheer force. Then he crashed into the steel wall, creating a large dent. Only then did he realize, this was not a level 1 puppet at all, but level 2, and I felt extremely bored, because I could defeat them with my eyes closed. At this moment, the instructor controlling the puppets was bewildered. "Isn't this a new batch? Why are they all malfunctioning?" But just as he was extremely puzzled, the gate in front of him suddenly opened, and after I walked through the gate, I mistook the instructor for the gatekeeper. Immediately, I unleashed stellar force, preparing to defeat him with all my might. But the instructor was greatly alarmed. He was not a combatant. At this moment, a silver-haired beauty was staring at the screen, but then she rubbed her temples with a headache, because this time, only 8 students met the training camp standards, and 5 of them were strength-type talents. But the girl using mental power on the screen caught the attention of the man in the floral shirt. Dong Qingxue praised him and explained, "Her name is Xie Ying. At only 18, she awakened as a level 1 mentalist. I have already listed her as a key training target for the training camp." But when Qin Shaojun switched to the next screen, he was suddenly stunned by the scene before him. At the same time, Dong Qingxue also fell silent, staring at the screen for a long time without speaking. And because of this, the two of them hurriedly came to the assessment gate. But just as Qin Shaojun found his subordinate to understand the situation, a loud bang suddenly came from the steel gate. Then I walked out from inside. Seeing it was a student, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The next second, their faces, because I was carrying an instructor in my hand. Dong Qingxue, seeing this, directly asked, "You are not a student from Qingyuan City. May I ask who you are?" After putting the instructor on the ground, I told them I was from Baihe City, and Qin Shaojun was suddenly taken aback when he saw me. "Those expensive puppets, Not only did you dismantle them, you even dared to beat up an instructor. Hearing this, I awkwardly scratched my cheek, stating it was all a misunderstanding, but Dong Qingxue stared at me with a serious expression. The next second, she suddenly erupted with spiritual chains from her body, and fiercely rushed towards me. I need to sleep a full 25 hours every day, because I have the ability to become stronger just by dreaming, and in my dreams, for every zombie I kill, I can obtain all its memories and power. Therefore, my strength is increasing every second. But even though I am so outstanding, I was questioned by a white-haired woman. She fiercely unleashed spiritual chains towards me, but I did not resist this power. After all, I didn't want to expose my trump card of possessing mental power yet, and as soon as Dong Qingxue's spiritual chains touched me, she retracted them with a slight disappointment, then faintly congratulated me on passing the assessment, and asked her subordinate to take me to the dormitory to rest. As soon as I left, Qin Shaojun brought over the data, smiling. Level 2. Puppets are like toys to him, but the data shows his blood chi value is only 15. Do you think this is possible? Dong Qingxue, however, said it was a pity for such good talent. When I probed him with mental power just now, I didn't sense anything. After much thought, I decided to list both me and Xia as top-tier seeds for cultivation, but they didn't know that although Xia Ling was exceptionally talented and awakened astonishingly, even when passing the assessment, the puppets didn't even touch a hair on her head. But Xia Ling shouldn't have been curious, and used her mental power to probe me, because I just glanced at her through the wall, and instantly shattered her mental power. Xia, who had never encountered such a thing, was so scared on the spot that she wet her pants, and I was also recalling the scene just now. Instructor Dong's mental power is at least 5 times stronger than mine. Even a small provincial training camp has hidden talents. It seems I need to be even more low-key in the future, to avoid being framed by those with ulterior motives. Thinking of this, my stomach rumbled. Under the guidance of the staff, I went to the cafeteria for a big meal, but just as I was eating with relish, a girl walked up to me. The newcomer was precisely the genius girl I met during the Martialist Association assessment. I was a bit puzzled. Hasn't Bai He City always been unable to send anyone? Why is she here? But Yang Yuan seemed to see through my confusion. Then she sat down and answered. It turned out that Bai He City sent students over every year, but even if they passed the assessment, they were dismissed because they didn't have enough points. And points are the currency here. To use the training camp's resources, you must exchange them with points. And until now, only 3 people in the entire training camp have points. One of them is Meng Jinghe. He possesses speed-type talent. Another is named Hao Yu. He has petrification talent. His defense is extremely high. The last one is Xia Ling. It is said she is the one with the strongest talent and strength in this batch, and has awakened the incredibly rare mentalist talent. But coincidentally, Xia Ling was also in the cafeteria. After seeing me, the culprit, she was scared to tears again. Then she composed herself and fled from here. At this moment, Yang Yuan spoke again. According to rumors, there is a 4th person. But this rumor is too exaggerated. Even a fool wouldn't believe it. Because this person is inherently violent and crazy. Not only did he blow up all the puppets, he also beat up the assessor and sent him to the hospital. Hearing this, I had just taken a sip of water and sprayed it out. Rumors are truly hateful. But just as Yang Yuan handed me a tissue, several staff members suddenly found me, given that during the entrance assessment, I destroyed 18 level 2 puppets, and hospitalized an instructor, among other things. They were taking me away for routine questioning. As soon as the words fell, all the students were so shocked their jaws dropped. Unexpectedly, that rumor was actually true, and it was the person from the weak Bai He City. Yang Yuan beside me was also struck by lightning. I actually badmouthed him to his face. This time, I'm doomed. A moment later, I arrived at the command center. As soon as we met, Dong Qingxue kept berating me, and stated the price of those puppets. Each one costs over 10 million. But after discussion, the responsibility will not be pursued for now. But in the future, you must obey the instructor's orders. At this moment, Qin Shaojun pushed open the door with people, and following behind him were the other three who passed the assessment. After Dong Qingxue praised us, she conjured point cards out of thin air and introduced them to everyone. This kind of golden point card contains 100 points, enough to have Chief Instructor Dong Qingxue give oneself a private tutoring session. I stared at the card in my hand, somewhat puzzled. Why isn't it golden? I looked at him in surprise. Could this be an empty card? Hearing this, Qin Shaojun laughingly scolded. The card in your hand is a 1,000-point card. If the chief instructor hadn't stopped the higher-ups, you'd still have to apologize for the damage you caused. Points. Upon hearing this, the students were all stunned. 1,000 points is equivalent to us passing the assessment. Actually, Cao Yong looked at me and chuckled derisively. I thought the training camp relied on strength. Unexpectedly, it's still playing the privilege card. The assessment. Instructors are at least level 3 martialists. How could you defeat him? The next second, Cao Yong angrily activated his stone skin skill, preparing to give me a good beating. But even though Cao Yong possessed the stone skin talent, even cannonballs couldn't harm him in the slightest. Yet I didn't take him seriously. Instead, I gently raised my hand and placed it on his forehead. The next second, I flicked my middle finger. In an instant, Cao Yong crashed into the wall, unconscious. Seeing this, the students were extremely shocked. After all, Cao Yong was a defensive martialist, yet he was defeated by me so casually. It was truly unbelievable. And I, seeing this, felt a bit nervous. Unexpectedly, using only 20% of my strength was still too much. Seeing everyone frozen in place, I intended to leave directly, but as soon as I reached the door, I was stopped by Dong Qingxue. Then, she stated that from now on, my points for her private lessons would be halved, and today, she would also teach me once for free. Upon hearing this, all the students were extremely envious. You know, one of Dong Qingxue's lessons was worth all their possessions, but I still pushed open the door and declined Dong Qingxue's kind offer, because I had more important things to do, that is to go back to sleep. As soon as I returned to the dormitory, I entered the dream, but as I delved deeper into the dream world, I found the zombies I encountered became increasingly powerful, although each of them was stronger than me. But I possessed an advantage that zombies lacked. That is, I possessed intelligence, while they only fought based on instinct. Thinking of this, I pulled out the long spear from the ground, then fiercely pierced the zombie's thigh, making it unable to move. Then, I gathered my stellar force, and smashed the zombie's head with one punch. Sure enough, this zombie was a level 6 quasi-grandmaster martialist before it died. And every time I kill an enemy of a higher level, not only can I gain immense power, I can also acquire their entire life's combat skills. But compared to the increase in blood chi value, I value martial arts skills more, and the accumulation of combat experience. Because human strength is limited, no one can achieve omnipotence in their entire life. However, I can achieve flawlessness. After all, I can absorb the strengths of 100 schools into one. This is my ultimate goal, perfect martial Dao. After absorbing the power, I thought of the parrot I fought just now. If it weren't for my mental power defense, I might not have been able to withstand even one blow from the zombie. Thinking of this, I entered my own spiritual sea. Looking at the sleeping giant before me, immediately, I silently recited the crystal contemplation method, focusing inward, not letting external thoughts enter my mind. Enchanting spirit. As soon as the words fell, a slight crack finally appeared on the giant's forehead. Then, a burst of purple light erupted from it. Subsequently, my spiritual form actually dematerialized instantly. But just as I was stunned, my brain suddenly felt a piercing pain. The next second, a mental power barrier was shattered by my impact. When I came to my senses, I accidentally discovered I had broken through. So I excitedly called Rei out, wanting to check my personal information again, and I found My information had changed once again, and I had actually entered the 7th rank Grandmaster stage. This, even in ancient times, would be considered a regional lord, and my authority also increased accordingly. Immediately, I asked Yi to display the realms of the 3 cultivation methods. But as I was searching for other cultivation methods, I was attracted by a miraculous cultivation method, and it was created by the person who created the crystal contemplation method, and it was a complete cultivation method. I only watched it for less than 2.5 seconds, and felt it was incredible. This cultivation method, although specifically designed for mentalists, its content was completely different from other mental cultivation methods, because the core of the divine illumination Nether King essence is to use mental power to create another self within the body, and it can also use mental power to continuously strengthen one's own body, not even sparing a single cell. This creator, Duanifeng, is probably also a top tier among level 11 powerhouses. Duanifeng, I will remember this name. But even such a figure could not stop the fate of Earth's destruction. It seems I still have a long way to go, and time is very tight, and what I need to do next is every minute, every second, I must strive to become stronger. But as I just woke up and walked out of the room, everyone was stunned. Just now, Xia Ling was practicing mental power in the historical records. Suddenly, a large number of magic bullets appeared dramatically. But Xia Ling just clasped her hands together, and instantly destroyed all the magic bullets. Dong Qingxue, seeing this scene, couldn't help but praise. To be able to control 3-star alls in just 1 month. Truly a top genius. Hearing this, Xia Ling quickly thanked Dong Qingxue, saying it was all thanks to her guidance. But Dong Qingxue's expression suddenly turned serious. Because she discovered there was a serious problem with Xia Ling's mental power. Xia Ling, hearing this, was once again enveloped by fear. She was speechless. It turned out that during the training camp assessment, I just glanced at her through my mental power, and it left her with a psychological scar, which she couldn't shake off even today. And Dong Qingxue gave the answer at this moment, demanding Xia Ling find that person and kill him. Then naturally, there would be no scar. And Xia Ling fell into deep thought upon hearing this, because everyone knew I had slept in the dormitory for a month, defeating someone who has been decadent for so long. Perhaps she could really do it. Meanwhile, as soon as I woke up, I planned to go to the gravity chamber to test the results of my cultivation. But at this time, the gravity chamber was occupied by Cao Yong, and he was currently using level 3 gravity to temper his body. You know, if a normal person trains under 1x gravity for 2.5 seconds, their bones might get damaged, and Cao Yong actually managed to endure 3x gravity for 2.5 minutes. It was truly unbelievable. Seeing everyone continuously flattering him, Cao Yong's heart was very pleased, but when he thought of me, his head still throbbed faintly, and Cao Yong's underling suddenly leaned over, saying there was no need to be afraid of that loser anymore. This past month, he ate, then slept after finishing his business. He was daydreaming every day. Could someone actually get stronger by sleeping? Cao Yong heard this. A slight smile appeared on his lips. So he was inferior to him back then. But even the slowest turtle can catch up to a sleeping rabbit. His current strength could definitely defeat him. But the next second, a familiar sound flashed before Cao Yong's eyes. This made him greatly alarmed, because although he felt someone flash past, he didn't see clearly who it was. But I didn't pay attention to Cao Yong's shock, and directly started a 3-hour gravity test. Cao Yong, seeing my ignorance, immediately scoffed. Because before using the gravity chamber, if one doesn't warm up according to regulations, the body will suddenly bear external pressure, thus causing internal organs to rupture. But just as Cao Yong thought I was about to vomit blood, I stood in the gravity chamber without any reaction. As I slowly clenched my fists, I could even jump up and down in the gravity environment. Soon, I felt this amount of gravity wasn't enough. Then I prepared to increase the gravity, and Cao Yong thought I couldn't hold on and was about to stop. The next second, a bright light instantly erupted, Even those standing outside the gravity chamber couldn't withstand this pressure, and what was displayed on the gravity chamber was an astonishing 4 times gravity. After calming the discomfort in my body, I then placed my palms on the ground, under everyone's horrified gaze. I actually did inverted push-ups using only 2 fingers, and just as Xia Ling arrived outside the gravity chamber, she found everyone dumbfounded. After she saw the scene before her, the confidence that had just risen in her heart was once again extinguished by me, and Cao Yong, standing nearby, was also hit so hard by me that he doubted his life. Didn't he sleep for 2 months? Why is he still so strong? Soon I adapted to 4 times gravity, and switched to 5 times gravity, but 5 times gravity was just right for me, for cultivation in a normal state. But this was still completely insufficient, because I needed greater pressure to force out my limits. Thinking of this, I directly switched to the earth-breathing method. Meanwhile, in the command room, Dong Qingxue saw a large number of students retiring every day, and instantly frowned, but Qin Shaojun said it was good they left, otherwise, they would just be deserters on the battlefield in the future. He wanted to say a few more words to comfort Dong Qingxue. The next second, Qin Shaojun's expression changed drastically, because he found the gravity chamber record had been broken, and it was an unbelievable 8 times gravity. Hearing this, Dong Qingxue excitedly crushed the water cup. She stared at the screen in disbelief. The person we were looking for has finally been found. At this moment, I was already drenched in sweat. After all, my blood qi value had never been high. The burden of 8 times gravity was still too strong. Just as I was about to reach my limit, I directly activated the Heart Sutra technique. Then I used my mental power to continuously stimulate my heart. In an instant, mental power circulated through my meridians for several cycles, and my body instantly adapted to 8 times gravity. I stared at my body in amazement. Just by completing the heart-beating construction with mental power, my blood qi was strengthened by 1 level. Is this the magic of the divine illumination Nether King essence? Immediately, I walked towards the control panel again. The next second, the special glass of the gravity chamber was covered in cracks. Even outside the gravity chamber, the students couldn't stand and knelt directly on the ground, and I was also slammed to the ground by the powerful gravity. This 10 times gravity made all the bones in my body scream, let alone move an inch. Just staying conscious required all my effort. However, this sense of oppression was exactly what I needed. I successfully broke through the shackles of 10 times gravity, although the process was excruciating. Fortunately, my cultivation method also broke through. The 3 hours after entering the gravity chamber consumed a lot of my points. Just as I was wondering where to get points, a reward message suddenly appeared. It turned out I had broken the gravity chamber's plan. The training camp directly awarded me 4,335 points, and I wasted no more time, and walked directly towards the next training room. Meanwhile, Meng Jinghe was arduously dodging lasers. He thought his dashing figure had already attracted countless fangirls, but unexpectedly, as soon as he walked out of the training room door, he found it was completely empty outside, and Meng Jinghe also keenly noticed. Everyone was watching from the opposite side. Even Dong Qingxue and Qin Shaojun came to watch, so he curiously walked over to ask. But Meng Jinghe hadn't gotten an answer yet, when he discovered I had already activated the full power mode. The next second, countless lasers sped towards me, but I just casually swayed my body a few times, and dodged all the densely packed lasers. Seeing this, Meng Jinghe was so shocked he trembled all over. You know, the training room has thousands of laser emitters. How come none of them hit him? And Meng Jinghe learned from a classmate beside him that I had just broken the historical record in the gravity chamber, and it was 10 times gravity. As soon as the words fell, Meng Jinghe was instantly petrified. Didn't he sleep in the dormitory for a month? Why is the gap between us like a chasm? The scene before them made Dong Qingxue and the other person speechless, but she still noticed some clues. My movement technique was less about reaction, and more like a form of precognition. Suddenly, I deliberately turned my head. The next second, a laser beam grazed past me. Seeing this, Dong Qingsu's pupils constricted sharply. Could this kid be a mentalist? Immediately, Dong Qingxue slowly raised her hand, wanting to test my essence again, but she was stopped by Qin Shaojun beside her. Not to mention that spiritual tendrils would affect my training. Moreover, she had already tested last time. This kid has no mental power at all. Why did she want to try again? At this time I also easily passed the second stage of the test. Soon, I began the third stage. The next second, countless yellow balls flew towards me densely. But just as I dodged the first wave of attacks, a large number of lasers actually appeared behind me, blocking my retreat. And this dense attack